Merrick Garland getting a little bit nervous out there. Congress is acting to hold him in contempt. A resolution just passed. We're going to read through what is inside. Some of the findings from Congress saying that this guy's, not complying with a lawful subpoena from Congress. And we know that the DOJ is prosecuting and has prosecuted and is imprisoning other people who have declined to comply with congressional subpoenas. Steve Bannon and Peter Navarro. Navarro's in custody right now. They want Steve Bannon to join him. So Garland's out. You can see he's now waving his hand. He gets a little bit flustered here. He almost never talks to the media, and now he is responding to what Congress is doing because the Oversight Committee, they came out. They were very excited about this last night. It was a meltdown in Congress. We're going to watch this clip as they're debating this stuff. But the Oversight Committee came out and they said, oh boy, the Oversight Committee, our committee has passed a resolution and a report recommending Attorney General Merrick Garland be held in contempt of Congress for defying a subpoena. They say accountability is here. Well, we'll see if he indicts himself, I guess, or somebody indicts him because others have gotten indicted, like Steve Bannon and Peter Navarro, who's in prison right now. So we'll see where this ultimately goes, but that is a big moment, and Merrick Garland is not happy about this. So he came out, he talked to the media. We'll see what he says before we go into this congressional meltdown where we have our representative scholars articulating the future of America amongst themselves. But Charlie Kirk clicked this one for us, and this was the scene outside in Washington. Merrick Garland, this is about as angry as you'll ever see him.
Justice Department is a fundamental institution of our democracy.
So that is the same excuse as to why you cannot criticize it. If it's a fundamental institution of our democracy, you cannot condemn it or criticize it or hold it accountable at all. And if you do, you're attacking our democracy. This is the same thing that they're doing in numerous other domains. You can't attack democracy. You can't criticize democracy lest you be aiding Putin.
On us to ensure that our investigations and our prosecutions are conducted according to the facts and the law and without political influence. We have gone to extraordinary lengths to ensure that the committees get responses to their legitimate requests, but this is not one. To the contrary, this is one that would harm our ability in the future to successfully pursue sensitive investigations. Now, there have been a series of unprecedented and frankly unfounded attacks on the Justice Department.
Wow, okay, so Congress has never sent subpoenas before and no one's ever criticized the DOJ before. Do you remember what these lunatics were saying when Trump was running the DOJ?
This request, this effort to use contempt as a method of obtaining our sensitive law enforcement files is just the most recent. The effort to threaten to defund our investigations and the way in which there are contributions to an atmosphere that puts our agents and our prosecutors at risk, these are wrong. Look, the only thing I can do is continue to do the right thing. I will protect this building and its people.
You kind of answered this just now, but I was wondering, what these combined with the efforts to defund Jack Smith and the other attacks on Biden administration officials say about the...
Jack Smith is illegitimate. He should have been properly appointed and he wouldn't be under this attack. It's a lawful legal defense. See how this works? You defend yourself, you're attacking the institutions of American democracy. Maybe they should indict him for that.
Discredit you and to discredit the Justice Department, and also how do you manage that? How are you resisting that, and what can you do about that as Attorney General?
I say a haiku every night.
We have to go about our work following federal principles of prosecution. As I said, we follow the facts and the law. We screen out outside inappropriate influences. That's what we're doing here. We're protecting our ability to continue to do high-profile and sensitive investigations, and we will continue to do that.
So you can't release the audio from your special counsel? He was only a special counsel for one thing. That's why he's a special counsel. He's now done. So release it. He's got no other investigations ongoing. This is all just an excuse.
Carrie, last question.
The odds now seem vanishingly small that the two Jack Smith federal cases are going to begin trial, let alone finish
you hear
trial
the heartbreak
this year. What does that say about the pace of the justice system and confidence in this Justice Department?
Look, the special counsel brought both cases last year. He appropriately requested speedy trials. The matter is now in the hands of the judiciary, and I'm not going to be able to comment any further.
He takes a couple questions and they shoo him on out of there. He almost never talks to the media because he's so bad at it. But he also, of course, is dishonest, and he's having a difficult time explaining to everybody why one man who was also in the executive branch named Peter Navarro is sitting in prison right now, and why his own DOJ has submitted a new motion to send Steve Bannon there as well. Now he gets to decide unilaterally that a congressional subpoena is not valid. Isn't that interesting? Now here are these maniacs in Congress who pretend like they have some intelligence in their brains, who clearly do not, are going at each other. This is just out of control. it's really hard to fathom what's going on here, but this is what's happening in Congress. So, all right, let's listen to this train wreck. Here it is.
Democrats on this committee are employing Judge Merchan's daughter.
Please tell me what that has to do with Merrick Garland.
Is she a porn star?
Oh, Goldman. That's right. He's advising. Okay.
He's advising who? What? Do you know what we're here for? You know we're here about
just
AG.
I don't think you know what you're here for.
Well, you the one talking about.
I think your fake eyelashes are messing up.
No, ain't nothing. Hold on. Listen.
Order, Mr. Chairman. That's beneath even order of your committee.
Order. I do have a point of order, and I would like to move to take down Ms. Green's words. That is absolutely unacceptable. How dare you attack the physical appearance of another person?
Are your feelings hurt?
Her words down.
Aw.
Oh, girl, baby girl.
Oh, really?
Don't even play.
Baby girl? I don't think
we are going to
so.
move, and we're going to take your words down.
I second that motion.
AOC, don't you even play, baby.
Agrees to strike her words.
I believe she needs to apologize. No.
Okay, hold on. After Mr. Perry's going to be recognized, then Ms. Green
I'm not
has 4 minutes and
apologizing.
21
Well,
seconds.
then you're not
reserve the right to
striking your
object.
words.
I am not apologizing.
Now let's go. Come on, guys.
Why don't you debate me?
Mr. Chairman, the minority.
Pretty self-evident.
You're not.
Yeah, you're not.
out of order.
You don't have enough
You're out of order.
intelligence.
Chair recognizes Mr. Perry.
Okay, move to strike
I'd like to
I
strike
move to
those
strike the
words
lady's
as well.
order.
I would like That's 2 requests to strike.
Oh, they cannot take the words.
There's another motion to strike her words again.
All right,
Please get it
okay,
under
here's the
control.
correct priority. Ms. Green, do you agree to unanimous consent to strike your word?
I repeat again for the second time. Yes, I'll strike
right.
my words,
That-
but I'm not
all right.
apologizing.
Without objection.
Not apologizing.
21 seconds.
Mr. Chair, point of order.
Okay, Jasmine, you're up. Your turn.
Ms. Crockett.
Here she goes.
I'm just curious, just to better understand your ruling. If someone on this committee then starts talking about somebody's bleach blonde, bad built butch body, that would not be engaging in personalities, correct?
What now?
Chairman, I make a motion to strike.
I don't think that's a
I'm
parliament.
trying to find clarification on what quality.
Chairman, motion to strike
no
those
idea
words.
what you just said.
We're not going to do this. Look, you guys earlier literally just said.
You just voted to do it. You just voted to do it.
Order.
I'm trying to get
Okay.
clarification.
Look it, calm down.
No, because this
I
is
would
what
like
y'all
to get
do.
to proceedings.
So I'm trying
Hey,
to get
Ms.
clarification.
Crockett, you're not
Y'all wanna
recognized.
play
Ms.
games.
Crockett.
I can't hear you with your
And
yelling.
You don't want
Calm
me to
down.
Be,
Can
no,
you please calm
don't
down?
tell me to calm down.
Calm down.
Because y'all
Please
talk
calm
noise,
down.
and then you
You're
can't
out of
take
control.
Because if I
Look, Chairman, can
come
we
and
send
talk
outside to
shit
take a
about
break
her,
for 5
y'all
minutes?
gonna have a problem.
Mr.
Order.
Chairman.
I don't know why
Okay.
you're
Order.
acting
Chair
like
now
that.
Okay, did she just drop the S-bomb on there? You bleach blonde butch butt. Whoa, okay, so we're all doomed. This is what it looks like over there. All right, and we could see probably get a lot more done that way and have a lot less theater actresses scolding each other in Congress. All right, so that is what's happening there. Now, let's go into what they actually wrote on paper, and here is the document. Okay, so now that that's out of the way and our brains have now digressed several decades, we have what they put together on paper. Probably not them, okay? These are other smart people who actually wrote this down, who know how to use computers. They wrote this: resolution recommending that Merrick Garland be held in contempt. And you can see this one. The Committee on Oversight, having considered this report, recommends the report be approved. And so let's go inside and see what is here. There is an executive summary. We'll hit the highlights. This is the problem. Now, in the weeks following the February 5th, 2024 release of Robert Hur's report, which we covered here, the 3 House committees, all conducting an impeachment inquiry, they needed to determine whether we're going to impeach Joe. So we reached out to the Department of Justice and we wanted documents and records related to Robert Hur's report. Hur sat down, interviewed with Joe. We got the transcripts eventually. Now, after the department declined to provide the committee with relevant documents and records, we and the Oversight Committee issued subpoenas. Oh, to Merrick Garland. We wanted the production of 4 things. 1, audio and video recordings of Robert Hur's interviews with Biden and his ghostwriter. We also subpoenaed these materials for several reasons, including we want to know, should we impeach Joe? Now, to date, the department has refused to produce the audio recordings, despite not having invoked any privilege to justify its failure. And so during Robert Hur's investigation of Joe Biden, his team uncovered evidence that Biden, quote, willfully retained and disclosed the classified materials when he was a private citizen. He then said that Biden, as VP, had strong motivations to flout the rules for properly handling classified documents. They say, in particular, months before leaving office, Biden decided to write a book. He got $8 million for that. And the materials that were retained by Joe were used liberally. They were classified. He used those in writing his book. Now, Special Counsel Hur, in his report, which was so-called independent, he said that Biden reviewed and considered considered these documents as an irreplaceable contemporaneous record of the most important moments of his vice presidency. So they're very valuable to me. And they're here to me to defend my record and to buttress my legacy as a world leader. Now, despite all of that evidence that he intentionally took the documents, he held on to them, he referenced them, they were used in his interviews, knowing they were classified, talk about intent. Despite this evidence, guess what? No indictment, no criminal charges warranted. How come? Now, Biden has vehemently denied the findings in the report. They said that Robert Hur's report was gratuitous. Yet during the testimony before the committee, Special Counsel Hur said this. He said the evidence and the president himself put his memory squarely at issue. And that's in the hearing on the Hill. His memory, the evidence, and the president himself put his memory squarely in the issue. It's not some sort of Republican conspiracy. Joe Biden is not there. In his report, Special Counsel Hur noted that during both his and Zwanitzer's interview with President Biden, the president's memory was, quote, significantly limited. He struggled to remember events and he strained at times to read and relay his own notebook entries. Could hardly read. We know that because he can't speak when he reads from the teleprompter. Now, Special Counsel Hur also observed that Biden, quote, did not remember when he was vice president, forgetting on the first day of the interview when his vice presidential term ended, and did not remember even within several years when his son Beau died. Yeah, and that's just interesting. So a lot of big moments there that he's just having a difficult time remembering. Now, the DOJ continues to withhold key materials responsive to our requests. Specifically, we want the audio recordings of Hur's interviews with Joe Biden and Zwanitzer, the author. The department has invoked no constitutional or legal privilege to support withholding this material, and its failure to comply with the committee's subpoena has hindered the House's ability to adequately conduct oversight over this process. Now, we have a bunch of power to investigate this stuff, and based on that power, on September 27th, pursuant to all of these, we released a memo talking about impeaching Joe, and we issued subpoenas to the department by Oversight and Judiciary. We explained below why we needed these materials. However, the impeachment inquiry is not our only basis for this. We've got Article 1 constitutional powers, and the committee's constitutional, it's mandated, right? They say we are mandated to carry this stuff out. And so we need to consider all this for legislative reform, so give us the material. So here's the background now. According to the report of Robert Hur, Patrick Moore, one of Biden's personal attorneys, discovered 44 pages of classified materials. Moore notified Bob Bauer, White House counsel, notified Stuart Delaray. Same day, White House counsel's office passed the information to NARA, which retrieved the documents. And so they give us some background on this. But then after receiving notification in 2022, Garland assigned John Lausch from the Northern District of Illinois to lead an investigation. After further discoveries happened, Lausch determined, we need a special counsel. So Merrick appoints a lackey named John Lausch. He goes in, he's like, oh crap, there's documents everywhere, Merrick. He's like, all right, let's get a special counsel in here. So accordingly, then Garland appointed Robert Hur. He served as special counsel. During his investigation, he did 173 interviews, 147 witnesses, including Biden himself and Biden's ghostwriter. He collected over 7 million documents, including emails, texts, phone calls, videos, toll records, other materials. And then on February 8th of this year, Attorney General Garland released Hur's 375-page report. They said, although there's evidence that Biden willfully retained and disclosed classified materials when he was a private citizen, illegal, Trump's being prosecuted for that, criminal charges were not warranted because he was an elderly man with a poor memory. Oh no. Now, as part of our inquiry into impeachment, we need this info, raises the prospect that he did this intentionally. We also have questions about whether he was the point man for Obama in his Ukraine efforts. By 2015, prosecutors had opened a, quote, unlawful enrichment investigation into Burisma. Oh yeah, the same company that had Hunter Biden working for them. Now, Special Counsel's Hur report shows at least two documents identified in the report, A9 and A10, which were made available to the committees in camera, so behind closed doors, concerned his interactions with the Ukrainian government. According to Special Counsel Hur, document A9, which presumably have not seen, was a telephone call sheet setting forth the purpose of and the talking points with the Ukrainian Prime Minister at the time, Yatsenyuk. Document A10 was another document, was a format of a transcript documenting the substance of another phone call between Biden this time and Yatsenyuk. So given that Hunter Biden's business dealings in Ukraine were active when Joe Biden left the presidency, the vice presidency, Biden's retentions of these documents raises questions about whether he purposefully took them to benefit his family, right? He takes the Ukraine documents because Hunter's still working there. There's also the prospect that Biden willfully retained classified documents for his memoir. While working with Zwanitzker, the ghostwriter, he read from classified materials nearly verbatim, just reading it to him. This guy's going to literally publish it into a book. Joe Biden has classified materials. It's not in a box at Mar-a-Lago. It's going into the public because an author is going to write it into a book. Meeting briefing notes summarizing the actions of everything. Notably, Robert Hur's report found that Biden received an advance of $8 million to produce that. To the extent that Biden willfully took this stuff to write a book, make a bunch of money, yeah, that's abuse of his office. I mean, Trump got charged. So on February 12th, approximately 4 days after the release of the report, they sent a letter to Garland requesting all these documents, 4 categories. 1, all documents, video recordings, which would be great, not just the audio, but the video. Can you imagine? We've seen Trump's depositions thrown all over the place, so why not an interview with Joe? All documents and communications, including audio, video recordings related to the counsel interview of the ghostwriter, all the documents as A9 and A10 about his weird interactions with Ukraine, all documents between the department and the special counsel's office about the report. So what was Joe Biden's White House saying to Robert Hur? So on February 16th, the department responded to the committee's letter. DOJ responds. They say, well, we're working to gather some of these responsive documents. We'll let you know how we're doing. The department offered no time frame. We'll get it to you in about 40 years. Accordingly, the Oversight Committee issued identical subpoenas. So we have Oversight and Judiciary, both committees in Congress. They said we want the following: audio, video. We want audio with the ghostwriter. We want those documents and so on. Now, the subpoenas sent a return date of March 7th. That has come and passed. On that date, the department produced an incomplete set of documents comprising only correspondence exchanged by Biden's legal counsel and other classified documents we could review in camera behind closed doors. Now, we notified them that this is inadequate. No, we asked for the audio and the video. You haven't provided that. In this letter, we noted that they failed to produce the audio and the video, and because Hur was scheduled to testify, we accepted a production of those materials until he testified, but we recognized that the department failed to comply with our revised deadline even after that. Next, a little more than 2 hours before Hur's scheduled testimony, the department produced 2 redacted transcripts of his interview with Biden. So I forgot about that. So they only dropped the transcripts right before he testified. Significantly, the department failed to produce the audio recordings of the interview. In its letter that came with the transcripts, which was sent to the committee at 7:45 before the interview with Hur started, the department represented to the committee that it had just completed a, quote, standard interagency review process, which is just, judicial babble, earlier that morning, thereby allowing the material to be released. We just finished it. Now, despite the department's representation, however, it was apparent that several news outlets reviewed the transcripts before they were produced to the committee. So the Times got it first, as usual. So the committees next wrote to Garland and they said, listen, you have our material. You have the subpoena. You have the audio. Give it to us pursuant to the subpoena. The letter again reminded Garland about the legal obligations. You're a lawyer, so-called. And we relied. The department again refused to produce the material. They just declined to do it. Now, the department replied again on April 8th. So not that long ago, just over a month ago. Again, said, get the hell out of here, Congress. In the letter, the department explained why it decided to withhold the audio. What's their justification? Not because of any applicable legal privilege that might apply, but instead because of their accusations regarding our motives. And they said the audio recordings were cumulative. You already have the transcripts. You don't need to hear it. Rather than engaging with the committee, the department took it upon itself to dictate, you don't need the audio or the video. Get out of here. Now, the committees addressed the department's excuses. We responded in another letter. They said, hey, you're withholding. In his response to the subpoenas, the committees rejected the assertion that the audio recordings were cumulative. That's a stupid reason, Merrick. The audio recordings are materially different from the written transcripts. And courts and other people have said that we can have all the relevant evidence that we want. We're Congress. So the committees also told the DOJ that you haven't asserted any privileges. There's no constitutional or legal privileges that shield this from coming out. And we also rejected your speculation that we had bad motives for asking for this stuff. And so we offered the department again another chance until April 25th to comply. But guess what? They didn't. The department again refused to comply. And on April 25th, they responded. They said that you have not articulated a, quote, legitimate congressional need. Weird. I wonder if Steve Bannon or Peter Navarro ever thought about that. Golly. Amazing. Said it would harm law enforcement. How? Is there another president that is being investigated for classified documents right now? And that the even-handed administration of justice, which is just, again, made up judicial babble, it would compound the likelihood that future prosecutors would be unable to secure the level of cooperation that was important to the investigation. So if we don't protect Joe Biden's privacy, the next president who does this may not work with us when we're investigating him again. It's such a joke. They're not going to give it up because they know how damning it is. The committees have articulated the impeachment and the purposes for this. And despite our attempts, there is no legal privilege or basis for withholding these materials. So we'll probably litigate this. The courts will settle it out. That's why we've got 3 branches. These 2 branches duke it out. Courts hopefully come in and step in. In the 2 months since the committee's initial request to the department and following the release of the report, they produced only 5 letters from the council, and we need a lot more. And the department's production of these letters does not relieve it of its obligation to give us the audio. During the dozens of hours of interviews. They said in the report that Biden literally read from notebook entries, read the material to publish it in a book. We found boxes discovered in his personal possession that included a bunch of stuff, sorts of stuff. Ukraine, China, Iraq, Afghanistan, Pakistan, Egypt. Said they talked about all of these things openly with his ghostwriter. Now, the audio recordings are much better evidence than the transcripts. Verbal context is important. Tone, nonverbal context. Now, I know this probably sounds obvious to us, but they're making their record. So when they go to the courts, they say, look, we've tried everything. Pauses, pace of delivery. It's very important. That's why we have recorded interviews for criminals. For instance, when interviewed, a subject pauses or inflections can impact how we think a witness can recall. The verbal nuances in Biden's answers are also important. We need to know, did he abuse his office or no? They're not cumulative, okay? Audio is the best evidence. It's much better than a transcript. You know that. You're a prosecutor. It's like, do you think that a recorded confession is a little bit better than maybe a transcript for the jury to see it? Yeah, he said it specifically. Oh yeah, that's him. He said it. He meant it. It's true. It's clearly believable. When he starts saying, no, I didn't, don't you want to have that recording to go back and reference? Such a divergence does occur and did occur. A video and audio recording reflects him reading a teleprompter on April 24th. He said, imagine what we could do next. 4 more years. Pause. Now, the transcript didn't have the word pause in there. So in this case, the video and the audio recording was the best evidence of the words that Biden actually spoke, okay? Because the transcript has the word pause in it, and he said something that he wasn't supposed to say. So we need to know what he actually said, not what the transcripts say, because transcripts can be inaccurate, as evidence there. So while the department has claimed the production of the audio recordings is not necessary, you already have what you need, we have a history of precedent on this. In fact, your own actions at the DOJ cut against your own argument. During Watergate, for example, back when Nixon was around, the department subpoenaed audio recordings of conversations between Nixon and his advisors. Now, although the president publicly released more than 1,200 pages of edited transcripts, the department maintained the subpoena for the audio. We need the audio, even though we have the transcripts. Now, the Supreme Court rejected Nixon's attempt to quash that subpoena, and his own actions demonstrate audio recordings are not cumulative. Now, the audio recordings would also inform the Oversight Committee as to the need for additional reforms at NARA. Robert Hur's interview had some interesting excerpts from it. They say, for example, the interview with Biden, Hur asked about materials found in Biden's garage. Here's how it went. Robert Hur says to Joe, but do you remember how these materials got into this box and then how that box got into the garage? Biden, no, I don't remember how a beat up box got in the garage. And do you remember how things like the Bo Iowa binder got into this spot? Somebody must have packing this up just picked all the stuff and put it in a box, because I didn't. Okay, do you have any idea where this material would have been before it got moved into the garage? Well, if it was 2013, when did I stop being vice president? Someone answers, 2017. Okay, so I was vice president, so it must have come from vice president stuff. That's all I can think of, says Joe Biden. So it does have some material in here that relates to your activities post vice presidency then, right? Like the Washington Speaker's Bureau material. And there's also material in there that relates to the book. It's called Promise Me, Dad, and with Mark Zwanitzer. And so there's some dates after President Biden jumps back in. See, that's what makes me think that just people gathered it up, whatever they found. And whenever the last thing was being moved, so the stuff moving out of the vice president's residence at the end of the day, whatever they found, they didn't separate it out, Speaker's Bureau and Penn, or whatever the hell it is, or Bo. They just put it in a single box. That's the only thing I can think of. So they say, okay, yeah, this colloquy is just one example of how this interview is relevant to whether legislative reforms are necessary here. We need to see the audio. Saying the Constitution does not permit the executive branch. Thanks. Throw around your constitutional cojones. Finally, we get a little bit of this. The Constitution does not permit the executive branch to dictate to Congress how to proceed with its oversight. Rather, our committees have discretion to do it. We've engaged in an inquiry. Now, we're under no obligation to rely exclusively on transcripts. We want the audio. And your refusal to produce the audio amounts to a demand that the committees trust the department. Like, we're going to trust your curated interview transcripts. No. Despite recent evidence of your manipulation of transcripts and only fixing the error after being caught, we don't believe you. And so Special Counsel Robert Hur's report makes clear, despite its conclusion that criminal charges are not warranted, that Biden willfully retained and unlawfully did the same while he was a private citizen. And so we issued a subpoena, and to date, despite numerous requests from this committee, we have gotten nothing, including a specific warning that failure to comply would result in contempt. And so we have now found that there is enough here to move this resolution forward. And of course, that's what Congress did. So the House Oversight Committee, as we saw, passed a resolution resolution recommending that Garland be held in contempt, and we'll take it from there. Now, the White House is digging their heels in, man. They are not giving this thing up. Here is what Politico reports. They said, you are not getting the audio of the interview. Don't even think about it. The White House counsel's office notified House GOP investigators of the move hours before they made this vote. Rather than changing the plan, the GOP's plan, they asserted privilege, and now they're moving forward. So Hur's description of his interviews with Biden laid out why they want him, and while the transcript have been released, other things have not. So White House counsel said the absence of a legitimate need for audio recordings lays bare your likely goal. You're just going to take the audio, you're going to chop it up, you're going to distort it, and you're going to use it for your political purposes. So Garland asked Biden to block the release of the audio. He said less cooperation would be the result. Karine also has some things to say about it, and so let's see what she says. They know how bad this is. They are not going to release it if they can help it. Here is Karine responding to questions about this. What is going to happen? Are we going to get this audio?
President Biden decided to block the release of the audio of his interview with the special counsel, and obviously the letter from the White House counsel laid out the reasons about the concerns of being used for political purposes, but that seems to imply that the White House is concerned that these could be politically damaging. So why not just release them, especially with this White House's commitment to transparency?
For one, the transcripts, as you all know, is already out there. I think the second piece of this, too, to note is that the Attorney General made it clear that law enforcement files like these need to be protected, and so the President made his determination at the request of the Attorney General. So I just want to make that second point that I made.
Oh, Biden didn't want to seal these things. Merrick Garland requested it, and so Joe Biden was honoring his request. You're like, come on. Who's wagging who here?
Clear. The Department of Justice and the White House counsel's office have provided extensive written letters, as you all know. I'm sure some of you have read this on this issue, and like I said, that you have seen. And so when it comes to anything further or any specifics, obviously I would refer you to my colleagues at the White House counsel's office. Just to make that second point again very clear, this was taken by determination, the President took the determination at the request of the Attorney General, and the Attorney General wanted to make sure that law enforcement files like these must be protected.
Yeah, so Merrick Garland walks into Joe's office and he's like, hey, Joe, I have a very important thing I need to tell you. We need to avoid this audio coming out to prevent you from being found and discovered to be a dementia patient. And he says, well, I guess if you need to protect your sources and methods, I do. I definitely need to. And then Karine comes out and says that's like above the board behavior. Biden's doing it to protect himself, but only at the request of the AG. And we're supposed to buy that? I can't believe she came out and said that. So that's their leadership over there. And so we'll be here to continue to cover it, my friends. Thank you for subscribing. As we do, would love it if you did subscribe wherever you're watching this. Would love it if you shared this channel with a friend or family member. Invite them to come over here and join us so they can see what's happening in these trials. We got a great members only community as well. Some great links down in the description below. We'd love to have you become a member on Locals or on YouTube. That way you can join us for our members only morning streams, including on Saturdays. And we'll see you over there and back here on the next one.